Привет, друзья! Welcome back to Be Fluent in Russian podcast. My name is Fedor. Today, let's talk about Dostoevsky. Last time we talked about Pushkin from a perspective of his, from the pronunciation of his poem. Today, let's talk about Dostoevsky, but from a perspective of making sentences. And I'll be talking about, of course, I'll first read the text, and then I'll talk about how to structure a sentence. And some things that you have to think about. Sometimes grammar, sometimes not. But I think that we have talked about the vocabulary portion of Russian enough, and learning new words each time is, it's cool, but sometimes it's interesting to look at the structure of sentences. Of course, we won't take Dostoevsky's sentences. That would be too complicated. Sometimes even for natives is too much. But we'll see what we can learn from this. And if you want to learn something Russian stuff more detailed and more thoroughly, then join Be Fluent Camp. We are starting on July the 6th. If you're listening to this podcast later, we do these camps twice a year, so there's always some session coming up. You can secure your spot today with the first link in the description. And despite your level beginner, intermediate, or advanced, you will have an incredible curriculum that will push your Russian to the next level. I can guarantee you that. Okay, let me read the text first, and then we can talk about it. Достоевский был великим русским писателем, но жил очень трудно и часто сидел без денег, в долгах. Однажды он подписал договор с издателем. Нужно было написать новый роман почти за месяц. Если бы он не успел, издатель получил бы права на все его книги. Времени было очень мало, а Достоевский уже работал над другим романом. Тогда ему посоветовали взять стенографистку, человека, который быстро записывает то, что говорит писатель. Так появилась молодая Анна Сниткина. Умная, серьезная и ответственная девушка. Каждый день Достоевский диктовал, ходил по комнате и думал, а Анна внимательно записывала каждое слово. Они работали вместе над романом «Игрок», книгой о человеке, который не может перестать играть в рулетку. Эта тема была близка самому писателю, потому что он тоже много играл и проигрывал деньги. Они успели закончить роман вовремя, и Достоевский не потерял права на свои книги. И Достоевский не потерял права на свои книги. Позже он и Анна поженились. Она стала его женой, помощницей и близким другом, и сильно изменила его жизнь. Эта история показывает, что иногда один человек может появиться в самый трудный момент и помочь изменить всю жизнь. That is all. Okay, so now we will take a look at each sentence. These are fairly simple. I would say like A2 level-ish. Maybe, I would say about A2. So, let's start from the beginning. Фёдор Достоевский был был великим русским писателем. Okay, that's the first part of the first sentence. So, Фёдор Dostoevsky is the name. This text describes a person, so it will have a lot of descriptive words. And for you to describe things, people, you have to know a few words like быть, to be, был, was, будет, will be, стать, to become, стал, became, станет, will become. So a lot of those state, being type words. If you don't know them, maybe that's why you're not really describing things around you as well, because you don't have those verbs to say was, will be, will become, will turn, turned out to be something. And this simple word был in this sentence allows the person writing this text to say, he was someone. Был великим русским писателем. Was a great Russian writer. Again, great Russian, two descriptive words. Писателем is his profession, of course. Then it's a comma, because then we continue to another point. No, but when you contrast two different things, you say no. When it's the opposite. Not when it's like and, when you continue on your story, but when it's the contrast. Жил очень трудно. Но жил очень трудно, but lived very difficultly. So, очень трудно. We don't say очень трудный, because очень трудный would be a description of an object. But because here we describe an action, жил, we have to use an adverb. Жил очень трудно. Lived very difficultly. И часто сидел без денег. And often sat without money. Again, часто сидел. Sat often. Часто, again, is an adverb. Not частый. Часто. Без денег, without money. В долгах. In debt. В долгах. Долги is debts. So if someone is in a lot of debt, we simply say в долгах, in debts. Однажды, this is where the story begins. First, it was like the pre-story description of why this is happening. So he was a great writer, but he lived without money. And then the story begins. Однажды, once or once upon a time, однажды, он подписал договор. This is a very simple structure. He did this. Он, he, подписал, signed, договор, contract. And then we add a detail. С издателем, with a publisher. Okay? So if we were to break down the sentence into the roles of this, we start with who did the action. Он, he. What did he do? Он подписал. He signed. He signed what? Договор, a contract. He signed the contract. When? Однажды. Once. It was a time. A contract with who? С издателем. With a publisher. That's kind of how you have to think about your sentence too, is you are adding layers of detail. Don't add details of like с издателем with the publisher first. It has to be the last because it's the least important. And here is another sentence that is a bit more complicated, but it's with conditional terms here. Если бы он не успел, if he didn't manage to do it in time, this verb успел. Не успел, didn't do it in time, but really didn't manage to do it in time, like that. Very small word успел, but packs a lot of meaning. Если бы он не успел, if he did not do it on time, издатель получил бы права. The publisher would have received the rights на все его книги, to all of his books. Okay? So here we have если бы something, then бы something else. That's the structure of a conditional, unreal sentence. It's like one condition has to happen for the outcome to happen. So если бы he didn't do it on time, then the publisher бы received the rights. Okay? In fact, let's do one more paragraph. I think the rest is kind of self-explanatory a little bit. I'm gonna just continue talking about the same thing pretty much. Времени было очень мало. It was very little of time. So in English we say there was little time. So time was in English. But in Russian, little was. Little of what? Of time. The reason why I say that is because времени is genitive. Genitive case cannot describe a thing that does the action. We cannot say that time was, because the time here is not put in a nominative case. That's why it's not a subject. Okay? So времени было очень мало. And in fact, I would urge all of you to memorize this phrase. Времени было очень мало. There was very little time. Времени было очень мало. Just drill it, drill it, drill it. А Достоевский уже работал. But Dostoevsky already worked над другим романом. So, работал над. Worked on. Другим романом, different. What's the роман? Book. But it's not a book. It's something else. It's some other word. Long book. Роман is long book. Тогда ему посоветовали. Then he was advised. Ему посоветовали. Here we don't have who advised him. He was advised. Ему посоветовали. Посоветовали advised ему to him. This is called an impersonal structure. When there's no person doing the action, but somebody did the action. Somebody did give him advice, but if we were to mention the name of that person or who did it, it wouldn't really matter for the story. What matters is that he listened to the advice, right? So the impersonal structure is key here because we don't want to give more information than really needed. Тогда, then, ему посоветовали, he was advised, взять стенографистку, to take a stenograph, like a writer, pretty much. Not a ghostwriter, but a person who writes what you say, so you won't be writing, so you can write faster, pretty much. And here they explain what it is. Человека, a person, который быстро записывает, that writes fast. So, который, which, that, who, человека, который. The person who, and then you describe who, what, is beautiful, is smart, is incredible, who writes fast. You can describe a person in any way you like. After который. Который is which or who. Который быстро записывает, that writes quickly. То, что говорит писатель. This то, что replaces that in English. Unfortunately, in Russian, it's a complicated structure because every time we have a new subject in a verb, we have to put a comma. And we have a lot of punctuation, a lot of connector words in Russian for that reason. We cannot just merge subject verb into like multiple pairs of subject and the verb in one sentence. We have to separate them with conjunctions, with connector words. So here, when we say который быстро записывает, that quickly writes, то, что, the thing that говорит писатель, the writer says. Because the writer says is one pair of subject plus verb. Человека, который записывает, is который записывает is another subject and a verb. Так, посоветовали is another verb and an impersonal structure. So there's three pairs of subject and a verb. That's why we have to separate them with this что. То, что, the thing that. Так появилась молодая Анна Сниткина. That's how Anna Snitkina, young Anna Snitkina, appeared, his future wife. Anna Snitkina. And then, again, the person describes her as умная, серьезная и ответственная девушка. Smart, serious, and a responsible young lady. That is all. So we have 3 more paragraphs here, but it's the same idea about the sentence structure, about usage of cases. Sometimes we can take a look at very specific things. And in fact, please, guys, let me know if you like this format. I think that it's enough. 14 minutes-ish is enough for this type of format. The future comments would just kind of be repetitive and probably will be too hard to keep everything in. I'd much rather break this into another section next time. Please let me know if you like this type of format, if it was useful. And I'll see you guys during the camp. We start on July the 6th. Join us now. See you guys next time. Пока-пока.